Hey y'all, welcome back to the farm. It is January and it is probably one of my favorite days of the year. Seed starting day. Today is the day that we start our first round of seeds for our 2025 growing season, and I could not be more excited, mainly because the hope of gardening season is upon us. So as you can see behind me, we have our metal baker's rack shelf that we have used to start seeds for several years now. We've used it outside in a barn, we've used it inside, we've put it in a garage, in a basement. It's been everywhere. So for now, it is in our living area, homeschool room. It's pretty much our flex space. So we have a space in the barn and we are waiting for the electricity to be turned on. We are waiting for the electrical inspector to come out, permits to be run. If you've been following along for the last several weeks to the last several months, we moved to this property a few months ago. So we are still trying to get all sorts of things sorted out, but nothing is going to stop me from starting my seeds for the garden season. And we start our seeds using soil blocks. And if you are not familiar with it, I will show you what it entails. It's quite simple. There are many benefits to using soil blocks, and there's also some cons. I mean, not every gardener should be using soil blocks based on how much they grow and what their current setup is. So let's go start, and it's going to be outside first because we gonna get dirty. We are gonna get started. So what I like to do is I like to know what my growing zone is. We're in the Piedmont Triad area of North Carolina, and our growing zone, depending on who you talk to, is either a 7B or an 8A. And so we use that information and we kind of track when our last frost date and our first frost date will be for 2025. I went ahead and on our website, you can find this resource and you can print it out. It's in a PDF format. It is a planting calendar. And what I like to do is in this middle section, I like to add where 0 is my last frost date. You can find your last frost date by typing in your zip code on the Farmer's Almanac website. There's other websites that allow you to do it. This is on our website, wildandwovenfarm.com, and it's under the resources tab. There's a sample page and a blank page. So I am putting in my last frost date average right here, and in the -2, 4, 6, 8, 10, these are 2 weeks prior, 4 weeks prior to my last frost date, and I'm writing those dates down. +2 +4 is 2 weeks and 4 weeks after my last frost date. Then there is a transplant and a direct sow section. All the seeds that I'm directly sowing into the ground are going to be listed here, and all of the seeds that I'm starting indoors that will be transplanted into our garden are up here. So here we are, 10 weeks before our last frost date, and we are starting peppers, specifically hot peppers. They are some of the earliest seeds that we start every single year. They kind of are up there with the sweet peppers, beets, all of our brassicas, and anything else that we kind of want to get a jump start on that we use our frost cover for. And so I have sat down with this weeks ago and have mapped this all out in my winter slumber, and now I have it all in one place. I know when I'm starting it, and where I'm starting it. So again, this is on our website. It's a free printout. You can go ahead and get it, start planning your garden. So soil blocking. This is a soil blocker, and it's a little squeaky. Soil blocking may not be for everybody. For somebody who grows on a medium to medium large scale, kind of like us, I think soil blocking is wonderful. I love that I don't have to buy single-use plastic with any kind of trays, plastic trays. I love that I can start all of these inside and they fit on these trays that we got. I will say any supplies that I'm showing you, I will link in the description below. You can or cannot use these supplies, or you can use anything you have around the house. You can get creative. You don't have to buy these. The soil blockers I will link. I have a set of 3. I have a small, a medium, and a large. These are handheld. They do sell standing ones, so you're just pressing down and not bending over, or doing a table setup like I am. So no single-use plastic. You're reducing waste there. Soil blocks harden off easier and they transplant easier, and it's a healthier plant, a healthier seedling. So when your roots are growing and they're spreading, once they reach the edges and they are inside a pot, they start curling. You've probably experienced this where you have taken a plant out of a pot and the roots are all wrapped around and it's just kind of root bound, and you kind of have to lightly, gently separate it before you transplant it either into a bigger pot or into the ground. That's pretty much what is happening. Versus soil blocks, when roots reach the edge of the block, they are exposed to air. There's nothing there. There is no plastic edge. And so then they will air prune. And then what the plant does is it sends out more roots from the main stem of the plant. And what it does is creating more surface area, more root structure for the plant to absorb nutrients. And when you're placing that plant directly into the ground, there is no shock as much as like what you would do with ripping it out of a plastic pot and loosening the roots more. You're doing nothing other than taking that block of soil and roots and sticking it into a hole or into a larger soil block. There is no crazy shock to the roots, and it doesn't suffer any kind of transplant shock, or it rarely suffers transplant shock. Other supplies that you are going to need is some kind of tub, bucket, something to mix your soil in. When you have a seed starting soil and you're using soil blocks, you are not just going to use loose soil because they'll just fall apart. You are going to mix it up with some water, and you're going to get it to a nice sticky clay consistency. And so we do that in the bin. And because, there's the rooster, because we are using these minis at first, you want a very fine soil. You don't want chunks of compost or debris in your soil. So I use a bucket with a sifter, and I'm going to pour my seed starting soil in this to sift it before I put it in this tub to mix it with water. And you may say, oh, seed starting soil is really fine. It's okay. Wait till you sift it. You'll see. So I will link below some of my favorite seed starting soils. By far, one of my favorites is through the Vermont Compost Company. It's an organic seed starting soil. It has just over the course of several years proved that it is by far my favorite soil to use. It is the Fort V. I will also post some other soil mixes for you so you can take a look at things according to your budget, your preference, organic, non-organic, which I don't really recommend non-organic, but I will link it below. So this was what was left in my seed starting mix. So as you can see, there are some bits of wood and rock, not to be confused with perlite, but that is going to interfere with our small soil block, so that has to go. All right, so we have all of our sifted seed starting mix in here, and obviously this is not going to form a block, so we're going to add water. So when looking for the right consistency, you're going to want something that is not too wet or too dry. So we're going to do the Goldilocks and the Three Bears and show you what is just right. So there's some water when I squeeze it, and do you see that it holds a pretty good form? This is very close to being just right. There's some over here that still has some dry matter in it. And that's not going to stay together very well. You also don't want it too wet because then it'll just kind of melt and turn to mush. So let's mix this up a little bit more, and then I'll show you what it looks like in the soil block. All right. I'm pretty happy with that. So let's make our soil blocks. So we have our tray, we have our soil blocker, and you're not going to want to hold your soil blocker like this because you're just going to push it down. When you are putting soil in your blocker, I like to use it like this, so you're not pressing the lever down. The key to getting a good block of soil in here is kind of like a rocking back and forth motion. And then at the bottom of this tray, I like to kind of swirl it around a little bit to get it nice and flat. Another benefit would be to kind of glide up the side and even it out on the side of your bin, and that's why I like this bin, because it has on the two ends a curved side, so it's not just a straight edge. I can curve it up the side and do that. So let's see. And some people will even get like a putty knife and scrape this down. I have no problem getting my hands dirty. And I know that this tray, I can fit them like this. You are gonna want to leave a little bit of space between your sections because you're gonna want to water in between. Let me see if I can show you on the edge. So you're going to want to press down, like press the whole blocker down, and then press your lever. And let's see what we come up with. Hey, that's not too bad. And you will see the little dimples in each block, and that is where your seed is going to go. So let's do it again. Excuse me. And there you go. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish this tray. So see how I left some space? This is where you're going to water within these channels.
I mean, Mom, water can just stuck through there. So juicy. Mom, you literally had 3 more.
I'm going to go ahead and get these finished up. I will probably do just about this of the hot peppers. So I may stop here. I may continue to add more for some other seeds that I've been thinking of. But then after I'm done doing this, I'm going to take it inside because it's chilly out here, and that's where I'm going to seed. Now, soil blocking may not be for everybody. It works for us because we can start a large amount of seeds in a small space. We can choose the healthiest seedlings and then pot them up from there. We tend to enjoy using less plastic. That's less expense for us. We prefer the low transplant shock when putting them into the garden just because we have kids helping and things just kind of go crazy when we're planting directly in the garden. For somebody that soil blocking may not be good for is possibly someone who grows at a very large scale. So I have some friends that no longer soil block because they use a air pruning tray. So it is a reusable air pruning tray, and feasibly the expenses are less, the work is less when starting seeds in the air pruning trays. Somebody who may not benefit from soil blocks may be somebody who's just growing a few dozen plants. This is 20 seedlings, and you have to pot these up very quickly. So if you're not attentive to your seedlings, then this may not be for you as well. And because our grow room shelf is pretty much right in our living room, we have to look at it every day. And so you are gonna have to water these every single day, and you cannot let them dry out. You are going to have to pay close attention. when you pot them up, or when you block them up rather, into these, it may be a couple days before you have to water, but you still have to be very attentive that they do not dry out. So I'm going to take this tray, we're going to go inside, and we're going to start putting some seeds in here. So we are back inside where it's nice and toasty, and I'm actually sitting here at my kids' school table. But I have my jalapenos, actually. These are actually the Tam jalapenos, and they're not as spicy as other earlier jalapenos. And these sell very well as seedlings. So at Wild and Woven, we do a spring plant sale, and we do pop-ups at different locations, and then we will be doing one here on our farm as well, where we have a variety of these very healthy seedlings that we sell, and it gets your garden started if you don't have this type of setup. So if you are interested and you are local to us in the Piedmont Triad of North Carolina, just stay tuned, and we will be announcing that soon. Our link to our email list is also on our website, and we make all of our announcements there in regards to events and things happening on and around the farm. So we get most of our seeds from So True Seed. They're in Asheville, North Carolina, and especially this year, it is very important for me to support our Western North Carolina friends that were completely devastated by Hurricane Helene. They continue to be devastated, and the rebuilding process is very slow and very long. And I have been buying from So True Seed for years. But it feels extra good to be supporting them this year. We also buy seeds from Johnny's, more of our specialty favorite variety types. We have bought from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, Baker's Creek. There's a whole list of different seed companies out there. So just take a look at any varieties. We always try to choose either an heirloom variety, an organic variety, open pollinated. These are just healthier, stronger, more vigorous plants. So let's sow some seeds. So as you can see, you have these little dimples, and that is where your seed is going to go. Most, if not all, of your seeds you will not need to cover. You can do like I do and just sow each one by hand. You can use tweezers, you can use, I have one actually, it's a seed sower, I guess you would call it, where you load it up and you just kind of tap the side of it. I actually don't have a preference for that. This just seems to work for me. Sometimes my children help if I'm not too concerned about the amount of little whoopsie daisies that happen, if it's just a crop that's really for only our family. Because these seeds are fresh for 2025, I am sowing 1 seed per cell. If it were a seed packet that were a year or 2 old, I may sow 2 seeds per cell, but that's one of the perks of these mini soil blocks is they don't take up much space and much soil, and if you have seeds that do not germinate, then it's not much of a waste of your time, money, and effort. And then you can just choose the best, healthiest looking seedlings to block up into the 2-inch blocker. And I will show you what potting up into a 2-inch blocker looks like as we go throughout the season. So be sure to like and subscribe to our channel so that you get an alert when it's time to block these up. It's actually a really cool process. So I'm going to go ahead and put the last of these in, and then I will show you how we put them up on the shelf and how we are going to water them and take care of them. So these are the lights we use. They're a 4-foot light and they fit on this shelf that we got at like Home Depot or Lowe's. Again, I will link all my supplies in the description below, but we're going on year 4 with these lights and I've had 0 complaint about them. So I just use some chains and some of these S-hooks to hook them up on the shelves. And then I will show you the heat mats and the temperature controls that I use as well. So here's our grow mats, and these are all the Vivo Sun brand. You're gonna want a temperature control unit, otherwise you're just gonna let this go all willy-nilly and it may fry your plants. So this is the grow mat. It is going to plug into your temperature control. Your temperature control has a little thermostat on it, and this is gonna go, I just kind of slide it in the crack of my soil blocks and it will read out the temperature. You're gonna wanna set this temperature depending on the seeds that you're starting. Peppers like it hot, so I usually set this around 80, 85 for my peppers. So with the light and the heat, your peppers should have no problem germinating. There are other tips and tricks to growing peppers because they are slightly finicky. So True Seed actually has information on their website about growing peppers and tips and all the things, so you can be successful. And if you're not, come see us. We've got plants for you come spring. Okay, so I got my first light hooked up and it's on. I have the heat mat under the tray and the thermostat control hooked up to it. Some tips and tricks that I want to give you if you're doing a grow setup. Plug in your grow lights into a timer. That way you don't have to worry about when to turn them on and when to turn them off. You're gonna want your grow lights on for at least 12 hours. You do want to give your seeds some kind of break of darkness, and so we generally give about an 8-hour break at night, And so the timer makes it so much easier to track that. You also want to get a bunch of twist ties and zip ties or something like that, because there's a lot of cords. And if you're like me, that visual clutter drives you crazy. And another thing, you want your lights very close to your seeds. You don't want them so close that you're gonna fry them. But to prevent your seeds from getting too leggy, you're gonna want your light just an inch or two away from your seeds. And so as your seeds start to grow and they start to come up, you are going to slowly raise your lights, which is why these chains and S-hooks are so easy. You just hook it on to the next one and you keep growing up. Especially for tomatoes, that is a really great way to get a nice, stocky, thick tomato stem instead of a long, stringy, leggy stem, because really the plant is just reaching for light. It wants the light, and if it's not close enough, it's going to reach. So there's another tip. All right, folks, here it is. It's our grow room setup. We started seeds with soil blocks, and we showed you all of the materials that we use, and I've linked everything in the description below. If you want to see us block up these soil blocks in the next several days, because it's going to be that quick, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and you'll get alerted about that video as soon as it comes out. As always, thanks for your support, and we'll see you next time. One last quick tip. Get yourself a little watering can that has like a little gooseneck nozzle like this on the end. That way you can dip that teeny little nozzle in those spaces, in those rows between your soil blocks, and the water can gently flow through there. You don't want to pour water all on top of your soil blocks. You want to water on the side. You can use a spray bottle and mist your seeds if you want. You also want to make sure you have good airflow. If you don't, then get like a standing fan and put that on low and just have it blow over your seeds. It will dry them out faster though, so make sure you keep an eye on the water content. One last thing, label your seeds. If you think in 5 minutes you're going to walk away and you're going to remember what block has what variety of peppers in, you are fooling yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Label your seeds right then and there. When you transplant them, label them immediately, because you will be so sad and you will trick yourself thinking that you can remember that block number 1 has jalapenos and block number 2 has sweet peppers, because pepper seeds look the same. They all look the same. Don't trick yourself.